Welcome.
Welcome to the Everything Podcast, Season 3, Episode 10, recorded on the 19th of December 2023, released on the 10th of January 2024, and in this episode I'm going to be reviewing the in-vision commentary version of the Giggle. So Russell introduces himself, David and Phil. Phil talks about the set featured in the opening scene of the Giggle. Russell reveals that the original villain for the Giggle was Stooky Bill. Russell reveals how he chose the Toymaker as the villain for the Giggle. David reveals that he knew about the Toymaker and the bi-generation for the Giggle. David talks about the new title sequence. Russell talks about an alternative title sequence. Russell reveals it was Stephen Moffat who ultimately made him go for the new title sequence. Russell mentions Tales of the TARDIS. Russell reveals an earlier draft of the Giggle featured Stephen Taylor. Stephen Taylor was the first Doctor companion who was in the original Celestial Toymaker story. Phil, Russell and David talk about Unit Tower. David and Russell mention the return of Bonnie Langford as Melanie Bush. Russell mentions the actor who plays Colonel Ibrahim in the Giggle was not originally cast as Colonel Ibrahim, but the choice has a part of casualty, so they went with this actor instead. Russell reveals that an upgraded version of the Flinks features in an upcoming episode. Phil mentions that the Unit Tower set is the most expensive set. Russell reveals and mentions the entire Whoniverse being on BBC iPlayer. Russell talks about Gemma Redgrave's other roles. Russell talks about David's regeneration featured in the Giggle. Russell reveals that every single Doctor has regenerated, which ends up with the Doctorverse. Phil, David and Russell talk about various episodes of Tales of the TARDIS. Russell reveals an alternative version of Stooky Bill on screen scene? Oh, okay, let me try that again. Russell reveals an alternative version of Stooky Bill on screens scene. Right, that makes a bit more sense. Phil, David and Russell talk about the 14th Doctor. David and Russell talk about Mel's previous adventures with the Doctor. David mentions the public filming that took place for the Doctor. Phil reveals that Neil Patrick Harris took him, David and Catherine to an escape room. David mentions a problem he has with the sound team for the Giggle. Phil, David and Russell discuss the flashback featuring Michael Gough's Toymaker and William Hartnell's first Doctor. David and Russell talk about the filming of the corridor scene. Phil and Russell mention the Celestial Toymaker story. Russell compliments David and Catherine's acting ability. David and Russell talk about the craziness of the Giggle. Russell talks about the puppets featured in the Giggle. Russell mentions the Toymaker's Legion's coming. Phil, David and Russell talk about the scene with Donna killing Stooky Sue. Russell, David and Phil mention the puppet show in the Giggle. Russell highlights the Flux puppets. Russell reveals the Toymaker's line about making Jigsaw out of Doctor's history is relation to the 8th Doctor being half human, as mentioned in the TV movie, and the 13th Doctor being the Timeless Child, as mentioned in Season 12, Series 12, Episode 10, The Timeless Children. Russell references a scene from The Unicorn and the Wasp. Russell mentions the galvanic radiation faced by David Tennant's 10th Doctor in Midnight. Russell talks about the Doctor and Shay's relationship. David and Russell talk about the Spice Up Your Life dance sequence featured in this episode. Phil talks about the Toymaker's various costumes in the episode. Russell reveals that the plan was always for the 14th Doctor to bi-generate into the 15th Doctor. Russell and David talk about Shooty's first scene. Russell theorises how many of the Doctors bi-generated, which includes the 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th, 10th and 12th Doctors. Phil talks about the Toymaker disappearing from existence. Russell mentions the 14th Doctor being the Therapy Doctor. Phil and Russell mention hearing the 15th Doctor's theme. Russell talks about Jeremy Redgrave returning in the next series of Doctor Who. Russell, Phil and David mention the final 2 scenes of the episode. Russell commends Phil's ability as a producer. My thoughts on the InVision commentary version of the Giggle is I love the insights from Phil, Russell and David. So if you watch the InVision commentary of the version of the Giggle, which is available on BBC iPlayer, then let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. If you didn't, let me know what you thought of my review, also in the comments below. Remember, you can also like and subscribe, and that's it for the Everything Podcast, Season 3, Episode 10. Goodbye.